Ambassador Zriel stood at the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle, her four eyes blinking in sequence as she studied the approaching space station. Arcturus IV gleamed like a metal flower blooming in the darkness, its petals formed by docking, arms extending from a central hub. Human and alien ships moved around it in careful patterns guided by traffic control. Zriel's skin shifted from its normal pale blue to a nervous purple. This was her first posting to a human station, and she had prepared extensively. The Voxian Confederacy rarely sent diplomats this close to human space. Most species preferred to meet humans in neutral territory. "We will dock in 10 minutes, Ambassador," said the pilot. "Human customs officers will meet us." Zriel nodded, her neck frill expanding slightly. "Thank you, Captain." She returned to her private cabin and reviewed her notes one final time. The diplomatic briefing contained standard information about human customs, social taboos, and preferred foods. But the section that interested her most was the smallest, a single paragraph about the edge of human space. The galactic chart designates all areas beyond human-controlled systems as restricted. Do not inquire about these regions. Do not propose expeditions or sensor scans of the unmarked zone. Violation of these protocols may result in immediate termination of diplomatic relations. Every diplomat in the galaxy knew about the blank zone on the charts. For 200 years, humans had enforced this boundary without explanation. Ships that crossed it never returned. Probes sent to investigate went silent. And humans responded to questions with polite but firm deflection. The shuttle docked with a gentle shudder. Zriel gathered her belongings and proceeded to the airlock. When the door slid open, she faced a welcoming committee of 3 humans and 2 aliens. "Ambassador Zriel," said the lead human, a male with short brown hair and a pleasant face. "Welcome to Arcturus Station. I'm William Carter, your liaison officer." Zriel performed the human greeting ritual, extending her right upper hand. "Thank you for the welcome, Liaison Carter." "Please call me William," he said with a smile. His grip was firm but careful, mindful of the delicate bones in Voxian hands. The other humans introduced themselves as security and administrative staff. The aliens, a tall insectoid prill and a stocky fur-covered Urnath, were diplomatic aides assigned to help her adjust to station life. William led her through customs, where scanners checked for prohibited items and biological contaminants. "Your quarters are in the diplomatic section," he explained as they walked. "We've adjusted the atmosphere and gravity to Voxian standards. If anything isn't comfortable, please let me know." Zriel observed the station carefully. Humans and aliens moved through the corridors with purpose. Most seemed relaxed, but she noticed that security was heavier than at other diplomatic posts she had visited. Armed guards stood at key junctions, and camera systems tracked movement everywhere. They passed through a large central plaza where merchants from dozens of worlds offered food, crafts, and services. The mingled scents of alien cuisines made Zriel's stomach rumble. "We can stop for lunch if you're hungry," William offered. "Perhaps later," Zriel said. "I would like to settle in first." Her quarters were spacious and tastefully decorated with both human and Voxian art. Large windows looked out toward the star Arcturus, its golden light filtered by the station's radiation shields. "The station council will hold a reception tonight to welcome you," William said. "Until then, please rest and adjust to station time. My contact information is in your room terminal." After William left, Zriel unpacked slowly. She placed a family heirloom, a crystal sphere containing swirling mists that changed color with her mood, on the bedroom shelf. Then she activated her secure computer terminal and recorded her first impressions for her government. "The humans are as friendly as reported," she dictated. "Security is visible but not intrusive. I have not yet had opportunity to observe their reactions to sensitive topics." That evening, dressed in formal diplomatic robes of shimmering green, Zriel followed a guide to the reception hall. Dozens of species mingled in the large room. Music played softly in the background, a human composition modified to sound pleasant to various alien hearing ranges. William appeared at her side wearing a dark blue uniform with silver trim. "Ambassador, allow me to introduce you to some key personnel." Over the next hour, Zriel met station administrators, military officers, and fellow diplomats. Most conversations were pleasant but shallow, discussions of trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts against piracy. Then she noticed something unusual. A large viewport at the far end of the hall showed ships moving around the station. A massive vessel was approaching, clearly a warship, its hull marked with strange damage patterns unlike anything Zriel had seen before. "What happened to that ship?" she asked William. His smile faltered for just a moment. "The USS Defiant has been on extended patrol. Those are maintenance issues." "The damage patterns look unusual," Zriel pressed. "Our ships operate in difficult conditions," William said smoothly. "Micrometeorite impacts can create strange patterns." Zriel knew he was lying. Her species could detect subtle changes in voice patterns and skin temperature that indicated deception. But she nodded as if accepting his explanation. Later, as she sampled food from the buffet, Zriel overheard two human officers speaking quietly. "3 ships lost this time," said a female officer with short gray hair. "The entities are getting bolder." "Keep your voice down," warned her companion. "We have visitors." They moved away quickly when they noticed Zriel nearby. As the evening progressed, Zriel found herself speaking with an older human female who introduced herself as Susan Miller. Unlike the others, Susan seemed less guarded, perhaps because she had consumed several glasses of human alcohol. "First time near the Edge, Ambassador?" Susan asked. "The Edge?" "Human space," Susan said, lowering her voice. "Where the chart?" "Goes blank." Zriel's interest sharpened. "Yes, my government is curious about that region." Susan's eyes grew distant. "I served on patrol ships for 30 years. Saw things out there, things that don't belong in normal space. The darkness, we called it." "What is the darkness?" Zriel asked carefully. Susan seemed about to answer when William appeared suddenly. "Captain Miller," he said firmly. "I believe Admiral Donovan was looking for you." 2 other humans appeared and gently guided Susan away. She went without protest but glanced back at Zriel with an expression that might have been warning or apology. William turned to Zriel with his diplomatic smile fully restored. "Captain Miller has wonderful stories about her service, but she sometimes mixes fact and fiction after a few drinks." "Of course," Zriel said. "Many species become creative storytellers when intoxicated." But that night, alone in her quarters, Zriel added to her secure report. "Humans are hiding something significant beyond their space. Their ships return with unusual damage. They speak of entities and darkness when they think no one is listening. I will investigate further, though with caution. There is fear here, not of political consequences, but of something else. Something they face alone at the edge of their territory." Outside her window, the USS Defiant docked at a distant arm of the station. Medical teams rushed to meet crew members who moved with the slow, careful steps of those who had seen too much. Zriel watched until the docking bay doors closed, shutting away whatever secrets the ship had brought back from the unmarked zone. 3 weeks passed as Ambassador Zriel settled into life on Arctura Station. She attended meetings, filed reports, and slowly built relationships with other diplomats. But beneath her official duties, she pursued answers about the blank zone, beyond human space. Her assistant Plex, a thin Centaurian with pale green skin and 4 arms, proved helpful in gathering information. Though nervous by nature, Plex had served on the station for 5 years and knew its routines well. "Ambassador," Plex whispered one morning as they prepared for a trade meeting, "I would advise caution regarding your questions about the restricted zone." Zriel's skin rippled with surprise. "Have I been so obvious?" "To humans, perhaps not. But I notice which files you access." Plex's large eyes darted around the room. 3 diplomats were reassigned last year after investigating similar matters. Another suffered an accident in the maintenance section. "Accidents happen on space stations," Zriel said. "Not to diplomats with security clearance," Plex replied. "Not 4 in 1 year." Later that day, William Carter arrived at Zriel's office with an unexpected invitation. "Ambassador, Admiral Frank Donovan requests your presence on a tour of the..." USS Vigilant tomorrow morning. Zreel's neck frill expanded slightly in surprise. The Vigilant was one of the largest human warships stationed at Arcturus, recently returned from patrol along the border of human space. "May I ask why?" she inquired. William smiled. "The Admiral believes in transparency with our allies. Several diplomats will be attending." The next morning, Zreel boarded a shuttle to the massive ship floating 2 kilometers from the station. Its hull was scarred in places, with fresh repair work visible on the port side. As they approached, Zreel counted weapon systems, far more than would be needed for normal defense against pirates or raiders. Admiral Donovan greeted them in the shuttle bay. He was tall even for a human, with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. His uniform bore rows of colored ribbons that Zreel knew represented combat experience. "Welcome aboard the Vigilant," he said. "We patrol the outer reaches of human space, ensuring safe passage for civilian vessels." 4 other diplomats had joined the tour: a reptilian saurian, 2 insectoid prill, and a crystalline luminar whose body glowed with soft blue light. All represented species with significant trade agreements with humans. "Commander Lisa Hayes will be your guide," Donovan continued, gesturing to a human female with auburn hair pulled back tightly. "Please stay with the group," Commander Hayes said. "Some areas remain restricted for operational security." The tour proceeded through public areas of the ship: the mess hall, crew quarters, hydroponics bay, and medical facilities. Commander Hayes explained ship systems with practiced ease, but Zreel noticed she avoided mention of their patrol routes or specific mission details. In the observation deck, large windows revealed the vastness of space. Arcturus shone brightly, while distant stars formed a backdrop of pinpoint lights. "Which direction is the edge of human space?" Zreel asked innocently. Commander Hayes pointed toward a seemingly empty region. "That sector contains our outer colonies." "And beyond that?" "Uncharted space," Hayes said simply. Her tone discouraged further questions. As they moved toward engineering sections, Zreel noticed sealed doors with red security markers. Guards stood at attention, hands near their weapons. "What areas are we not seeing today?" asked the Saurian diplomat. "Weapons control, sensor arrays, and special research facilities," Commander Hayes replied. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. 3 short blasts followed by a computerized voice. "Alert. Anomaly detected in Sector 7. All personnel to stations." The corridor filled with rushing crew members. On a wall display, Zreel glimpsed an image before an officer shut it down. A swirling darkness dotted with what looked like eyes or perhaps lights. Something about the image made her feel cold, though the temperature hadn't changed. Commander Hayes spoke urgently into her communication device. "Status report? Is it a full breach?" After listening to the response, she visibly relaxed. "False. Alarm. Sensor ghost." She turned to the diplomats with an apologetic smile. "I'm afraid we need to cut our tour short. Please return to the shuttle bay." As they walked, Zreel overheard 2 officers speaking quietly. "Thanatos protocol activated for nothing," one said. "3rd false alarm this month." "Better safe than sorry," replied the other. "Remember what happened to the Constellation." Zreel slowed her pace to stay near them, but Commander Hayes noticed and ushered her forward. "What is the Thanatos protocol?" Zreel asked directly. Hayes stopped walking. Her face paled slightly. "I don't recall mentioning that term, Ambassador. Someone nearby did." "A standard security measure," Hayes said after a moment's hesitation. "Nothing worth discussing." Back on the station, Zreel found William waiting for her. "How was the tour?" he asked. "Educational," she replied, though interrupted by an alert. William nodded. "Sensor malfunctions happen occasionally. Space, radiation affects equipment." "Of course," Zreel said, not believing him. "I look forward to the diplomatic reception tonight." When she returned to her quarters, Zreel immediately sensed something wrong. The air smelled different. A trace of human scent lingered. Her belongings appeared untouched, but the crystalline family heirloom on her shelf had been moved slightly. Someone had searched her room. On her desk lay a data chip that hadn't been there before. Zriel examined it carefully, checking for traps or tracking devices. Finding none, she inserted it into her secure terminal. The chip contained fragmentary records, ship logs, incident reports, and medical files, all marked with human military encryption that had been broken. They detailed encounters with something called void entities and listed human vessels lost over the past 50 years. The final document was a partial report about psychic contamination among survivors. Zuriel copied the data to her personal device, then destroyed the chip. She wasn't sure if this information had been planted as a warning or provided by someone who wanted the truth revealed. Either way, she was now part of something dangerous. That evening at the diplomatic reception, Zuriel watched William more carefully. He performed his duties with practiced ease, but occasionally his eyes drifted toward the viewport showing the edge of human space. Admiral Donovan approached her near the end of the evening. "Ambassador, I trust you found your tour of the Vigilant informative." "Very," Zriel said. "Your ships are impressive, especially their defensive capabilities." Donovan studied her face. "Some boundaries exist for good reasons, Ambassador. Some questions are better left unasked." "My people believe knowledge brings understanding," Zriel replied. "Sometimes knowledge brings only nightmares," Donovan said quietly. He nodded politely and moved away, leaving Zriel with a chill running through her body. Later, she added to her secure report, "Humans are fighting something beyond their space, something they fear deeply. They call them void entities and have protocols to deal with them. I believe humans have been keeping this threat contained, possibly for generations. The question remains, why face this alone? Why not seek help from the galactic community?" As she prepared for sleep, Zriel looked out her window toward the edge of human space. The stars seemed dimmer in that direction, though she knew that was impossible. Perhaps it was just her imagination, influenced by the day's discoveries. Or perhaps something out there really was consuming the light. Ambassador Zriel spent 3 days analyzing the data from the mysterious chip. Much of it remained encrypted, but she learned enough to form a plan. The records mentioned an archaeological site on Proxima b, an uninhabited planet where ancient ruins had been discovered. The site was being studied by a joint human-alien research team, and according to the files, they had found evidence related to the void entities. When Zriel mentioned the planet to William during their morning meeting, she watched his reaction carefully. "I've heard Proxima b has fascinating ruins," she said casually. "My government is interested in archaeological cooperation." William's expression remained neutral, but his pulse quickened, a change only Voxian eyes could detect. "The research station there accepts diplomatic visitors. I could arrange a tour if you'd like." "That would be wonderful," Zriel said. "Would you accompany me? I value your insights." 2 days later, they boarded a small diplomatic shuttle. The journey to Proxima b would take 14 hours. Zriel used the time to observe William, who seemed genuinely relaxed as they discussed cultural differences between their species. "Humans adapt quickly to new situations," Zriel noted. "Your species has spread farther in 2 centuries than most. Achieve in 1,000 years." William nodded. "Necessity drives innovation. When Earth became too crowded, we had to expand or face extinction." "Was that the only reason?" Zriel asked. William looked at her thoughtfully. What other reason would there be? Zriel changed the subject, but she noted his careful deflection. Proxima b orbited a red dwarf star. From space it appeared rust-colored, with small oceans and large deserts. The research base sat near the equator, a cluster of domes and towers surrounded by excavation sites. Dr. Olivia Bennett greeted them at the landing pad. She was shorter than William, with dark skin and curly black hair streaked with gray. "Welcome to Proxima Research Station. We don't get many diplomats here." "Ambassador Zriel has an interest in ancient civilizations," William explained. "Then, you've come to the right place," Dr. Bennett said. "The predecessors left ruins across this planet. We believe they were spacefaring over 50,000 years ago, then suddenly vanished." She led them through the main research dome, where scientists from 6 different species worked together analyzing artifacts. Long tables held fragments of stone and metal with strange symbols carved into them. "Can you read their language?" Zriel asked. "Partially," Dr. Bennett replied. "They used both written symbols and psychic impressions stored in crystalline devices. Their civilization was highly advanced, especially in dimensional physics." "Dimensional physics?" Zriel's interest sharpened. "They studied spaces between normal dimensions," Dr. Bennett explained. "At least that's our current interpretation." The tour continued outside, where excavation teams worked in trenches around a massive stone structure. The building was pyramid-shaped, but with curved sides that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Just looking at it made Zriel feel slightly dizzy. "This was a temple or research facility," Dr. Bennett said. "We've only explored the upper levels so far." "What have you found inside?" William asked. "Mainly ceremonial chambers, but also laboratories with equipment we don't fully understand." She hesitated. "Some chambers contain warnings." "What kind of warnings?" Zriel asked. "Images of darkness consuming worlds," Dr. Bennett said quietly. "The translation team believes they depict some kind of interdimensional invasion." As they walked along the perimeter of the excavation, Zriel noticed a separate dig site surrounded by human security personnel. No alien researchers worked there. "What's that area?" she asked. "Military research," William answered before Dr. Bennett could speak. "Some artifacts have defense applications." Dr. Bennett frowned slightly but said nothing. After lunch in the research facility's dining hall, they joined a larger tour group heading into the main pyramid structure. Cool air flowed through ancient ventilation systems as they descended stone ramps into the heart of the building. The walls were covered with carvings, star maps, mathematical formulas, and scenes depicting tall, slender beings with 4 arms. In one chamber, a massive mural showed these beings fighting shapeless shadows that seemed to swallow light. The predecessors depicted a great war against an enemy they called the Thought Eaters, the guide explained. Beings that existed between dimensions and fed on conscious minds. Zriel exchanged glances with William, who studied the mural with unusual intensity. As the tour moved to the next chamber, Zriel deliberately fell behind. She noticed a narrow corridor branching off the main path, unmarked and unguarded. On impulse, she slipped into it, hoping William wouldn't notice her absence immediately. The passage descended steeply. The air grew colder, and the walls changed from carved stone to a smooth, glass-like material that glowed faintly. Zriel moved carefully, recording everything with her personal device. The corridor ended at a circular chamber. In its center stood a crystalline pillar that pulsed with soft blue light. As Zriel approached, the light brightened, and suddenly the air shimmered. A holographic image appeared, one of the predecessors, its 4 arms raised in greeting. When it spoke, Zriel heard the words in her mind rather than with her ears. "Guardian or Seeker?" the figure asked. "The barrier weakens as stars die. The hunger grows." "What barrier?" Zriel asked aloud. "What hunger?" The hologram shifted, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Certain regions glowed brightly, including the area now known as human space. "The veil between dimensions thins where reality flexes," the figure continued. "The void entities push against these points, seeking entry. They consume thought, light, and life." The map changed, showing dark tendrils reaching into the galaxy through various points. Then it displayed another image: early humans on Earth, surrounded by predecessor scientists. "We chose them for their adaptability and mental resistance," the hologram explained. "We changed them, prepared them to stand guard when we were gone. The seeded worlds must be protected." Footsteps echoed in the corridor behind her. Zriel turned to see William standing there, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here, Ambassador," he said quietly. "Your people were modified by the predecessors," Zriel said, "to fight these entities." William sighed. "To recognize them, to resist them, to contain them." He looked at the hologram, Most species can't even perceive the void entities until it's too late. They're taken over, possessed. Humans can sense them coming. Why keep this secret? The galaxy could help. The risk is too great, William replied. Mass panic, religious upheaval, and worse, attention. The entities are drawn to conscious thought, especially fear. If trillions of beings knew about them, focused on them. The hologram spoke again. The shadows grow stronger. The children must hold the line. Before Zriel could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. William's communication device buzzed urgently. We need to leave, he said, suddenly tense. Now. What's happening? Breach alert from Arcturus Station, William said grimly. Something's coming through. As they hurried back toward the surface, Zriel realized she had found her answer about the blank zone on the galactic chart. But now she wondered if some questions truly were better left unasked. The return journey to Arcturus Station took only 8 hours at emergency speed. William spent most of the time in the shuttle's communication room, speaking with military commanders in hushed tones. When he emerged, his face was grim. What's happening? Zriel asked. A Thalosian science vessel crossed into the restricted zone yesterday, William explained. They were attempting to map the region despite multiple warnings. We lost contact with them 6 hours ago. And now? Something followed their path back. William's voice was flat. The entity breached near Arcturus Station. Zriel felt a chill. The void entities can track ships? They don't track. They possess. William looked directly at her. When they take a sentient being, they gain access to all its knowledge and technology. The Thalosian crew knew the way, to Arcturus. When they approached the station, Zriel saw unusual activity. Defense platforms had been activated, their weapons pointed outward. Military vessels formed a protective ring around the civilian sections. The docking procedure took longer than usual. Security teams in sealed environmental suits checked everyone entering the station. They paid special attention to the eyes of each person, scanning them with handheld devices. They're checking for possession, William explained quietly. Early signs include changes in eye structure and brainwave patterns. The main concourse was nearly empty. Most civilians had been moved to secure areas deeper in the station. Military personnel rushed through corridors and medical teams prepared emergency equipment. Ambassador Zriel. Admiral Donovan met them at the diplomatic section. I hope your archaeological tour was informative. His tone made clear that he knew exactly where she had been and what she had discovered. Very, Zriel replied, though I believe I'm still missing important information. You'll get it now, Donovan said grimly. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. The Thalosian ambassador is demanding answers about his missing ship. The council chamber was already filled with representatives from 20 species when they arrived. The atmosphere was tense. On one side sat the Thalosian ambassador, a tall avian being with metallic blue feathers and sharp eyes. My government demands to know what happened to our research vessel, he said as soon as the session began. It was in unclaimed space, violating no recognized treaties. Admiral Donovan stood. Your vessel entered a quarantine zone clearly marked on all official charts. We sent 3 warnings which your captain acknowledged before proceeding anyway. Quarantine implies disease, the Thalosian snapped. What disease requires an entire sector of space to be restricted? Before Donovan could answer, the chamber lights flickered. The main communication screen activated by itself, showing static before clearing to reveal a face. It appeared Thalosian, but the eyes were wrong, completely black, with pinpricks of light that moved like stars. We have come, the figure said, its voice distorted. We are hungry. The screen went dead. Seconds later, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency protocols activated, announced the station computer. All personnel to designated safe zones. The Thalosian ambassador stared at the blank screen, his feathers bristling with fear. What was that? It looked like Captain Krell, but not anymore, Donovan said quietly. Ambassador, your ship and crew have been compromised. All communication with Earth suddenly cut off. The status displays showed disruption across multiple systems. Admiral Donovan received an urgent message on his personal device and paled visibly. A major breach has occurred, he announced to the Council. The entities have broken through in unprecedented numbers. This is no longer just about one ship. Earth itself is under attack. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives demanded explanations, protection, evacuation ships. Admiral Donovan raised his hands for silence. For centuries, humanity has guarded the boundary between our dimension and another, he said. The beings that exist there, what we call void entities, feed on conscious thought. They cannot fully manifest in our universe without a host. But once they possess a sentient being, they can use that being's knowledge and technology against us. He activated a holographic display showing the region beyond human space. Dark patches moved through it like oil in water. Humans have a unique neurological structure, Donovan continued. We can sense the entity's presence and resist possession longer than other species. The predecessors engineered this trait into our ancestors 50,000 years ago, making us guardians of the barriers between dimensions. The Thalosian ambassador's anger turned to horror. You're saying these things can take over our bodies? Our minds? Yes, Donovan said simply, which is why we patrol the borders alone. Any other species would be instantly compromised. William was called away to join the defense fleet. Before leaving, he took Zriel aside. He handed her a data crystal. These are the complete records, he said. Everything humanity knows about the void entities, their abilities, weaknesses, the patterns of their attacks. Why give this to me? Zriel asked. Because if we fail to contain this breach, the galaxy needs to be prepared. William's expression was solemn. For centuries, we've fought this war alone because it was safer that way. But now everyone is at risk, Zriel finished. William nodded. The entities cannot be killed in conventional ways. They can be forced back through dimensional weak points. Energy weapons slow them down. Certain frequencies disrupt their hold on possessed bodies. How can I help? Zriel asked. The Galactic Council needs to evacuate systems near human space, William said. But they won't do it without proof, and we can't tell them everything without causing galaxy-wide panic. Which would attract more entities, Zriel understood. Exactly. Fear is like a beacon to them. William checked his device as another alert sounded. I have to go. The Vigilant is deploying to the breach point. After William left, Zriel studied the data crystal. It contained millennia of human records, encounters with the entities throughout Earth's history, disguised in myths about demons and spirits. The establishment of the first deep space outpost specifically to monitor dimensional weak points. The development of weapons and defenses, and the casualties. Thousands of ships lost. Millions of humans who died holding the line against an enemy that consumed minds as easily as humans breathed air. The station shuddered as another alarm sounded. Through the viewport, Zriel watched the USS Vigilant and 3 other warships move away from the station, heading toward the edge of human space. Their weapons were active, energy fields surrounding their hulls like blue fire. The Thalosian ambassador approached her, his earlier arrogance replaced by fear. Is it true? These things can take over our minds. Yes, Zriel said. Humans have been fighting them for generations. Why didn't they tell us? He demanded. Zriel looked at the retreating ships. Would you have believed them? Or would you have done exactly what your science vessel did, ignore the warnings and investigate anyway? The ambassador had no answer. Together they watched the human ships vanish into the darkness, heading toward an enemy they could barely comprehend. On the main screen, Admiral Donovan addressed the station. All non-essential personnel will be evacuated within 6 hours. Human defense forces are engaging the entities at the breach points. We ask for your cooperation and calm. His words were measured, his tone confident. But Zriel, with her ability to read human physiological signs, could see the truth. The Admiral was terrified, not for himself, but for everyone under his protection. Humans had been standing guard at the edge of darkness for centuries. Now, for the first time, the darkness was pushing back hard enough to break through. 3 months after the breach at Arcturus Station, Ambassador Zariel stood before the full Galactic Council on Centauri Prime. Representatives from over 200 species filled the Grand Chamber. Emergency sessions had been ongoing for weeks, as the Council struggled to address what many now called the Void Crisis. Zariel had spent these months traveling between refugee centers, military outposts, and research facilities. The data crystal William had given her proved invaluable in helping scientists develop new detection systems for the entities. The quarantine zone around human space must be maintained, Zariel said to the assembled representatives. But we can no longer pretend the threat doesn't exist. On the main display behind her, a map showed the current situation. Red markers indicated breach points where the void entities had pushed through dimensional barriers. Most were within human territory, but 3 had appeared in neighboring systems. For centuries, humans have contained these incursions alone, Zariel continued. They designed their expansion into space specifically to monitor and protect dimensional weak points. The blank zone on our charts was not arrogance or secrecy for its own sake. It was a shield protecting us all. The Thalosian ambassador, subdued after the loss of his people's science vessel, spoke next. We lost contact with 2 colony worlds near the quarantine zone last month. The few survivors described their people turning against each other with strange darkness filling their eyes. Security footage from these colonies played on the screens. Civilians with black eyes and unnatural movements attacked others. When energy weapons struck them, darkness poured from their bodies like smoke before they collapsed. The human defense protocols are effective, said a Prill scientist, her insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. Their specialized weapons can force the entities out of possessed hosts without killing them, though the psychological trauma is severe. The council chamber doors opened, and a group of human officers entered. William Carter was among them, now wearing a captain's uniform, with a new insignia, a shield with a starfield behind it. A fresh scar ran along his jaw, and he walked with a slight limp. Admiral Donovan led the delegation. The breach at Earth has been contained, he reported, but at significant cost. 27 ships lost, thousands of personnel. His voice was steady, but exhaustion showed in every line of his face. And the other breach points? Asked the council chairperson. Sealed for now, Donovan said. But the entities are growing more aggressive, more organized. They're learning from each encounter. A Luminar representative raised a glowing hand. My people have studied the historical data provided by Ambassador Zariel. We believe the increased activity may be cyclical. The predecessors recorded similar surge periods every few thousand years. That matches our own research, Donovan nodded. Which is why we're here today. Humanity can no longer fight this war alone. The proposal they presented was unprecedented. A joint human-alien task force dedicated to containing the void entities. Selected representatives from each major species would train with humans to recognize the signs of possession and resist the entity's influence. Not everyone can fight on the front lines, William explained. Humans will still form the core of defense forces at breach points, but early detection and containment require a galaxy-wide effort. After hours of debate, the council voted. The measure passed with overwhelming support. Fear had overcome centuries of distrust and political maneuvering. Later, in a smaller meeting room, Zariel found William staring out a viewport at the stars. Your scar is healing well, she said. William touched his jaw absently. One of many. The Vigilant took heavy damage during the Earth breach. We lost a third of the crew. But you contained it. Barely. William turned to face her. The USS Vigilant just returned from another mission. Commander Hayes sends her regards. Is she well, considering what she's seen, as well as any of us? William handed Zariel a small device. This contains updated defensive measures based on what we learned during the breach. Your scientists should study it immediately. Zriel accepted it. The Council will reconvene tomorrow to discuss implementation. Most species are still struggling to accept the reality of interdimensional predators. It's hard to believe in something you can't see until it's consuming you, William said quietly. Why did humans keep this burden to themselves for so long? Zriel asked. Even when it cost so many lives? William was silent for a moment. Have you ever watched children sleeping? How peaceful they are, not knowing what dangers exist in the world? Zriel nodded. That's how we saw the rest of the galaxy. Peaceful, unburdened by nightmares. William's eyes reflected starlight. The predecessors chose us because we were stubborn enough to fight, adaptable enough to survive, and protective enough to do it alone. The next day, a new galactic chart was released to all ships and stations. Human space was no longer marked as a blank zone, but instead bore a simple designation: Protectorate Zone, restricted access by treaty. New warning beacons were placed along the boundaries, broadcasting on all frequencies. Dimensional instability. Beyond this point, authorized vessels only. 6 months later, as the first joint defense outposts began operations, Zriel returned to Arcturus Station. It had been rebuilt after suffering damage during the breach. New security measures were everywhere, and alien scientists now worked alongside humans in laboratories studying the void entities. Admiral Donovan had retired, replaced by a younger officer named Jason Brooks. He greeted Zriel warmly. The training program is proceeding well, he told her. Representatives from 17 species have shown resistance to entity influence. Not as strong as humans, but enough to serve as early warning systems. And the breaches? Down by 60% since the early detection grid went online. Brooks smiled. Your suggestion to adapt predecessor technology was brilliant. Zriel had become something of a celebrity among diplomats, the one who had uncovered the truth and helped forge the new alliance. But she took no pride in it. She had seen the cost of knowledge. On her last evening at the station, she visited the memorial wall where the names of those lost in the defense of the dimensional barriers were displayed. Thousands of human names covered the surface dating back centuries. William found her there. He was shipping out in the morning, taking command of a new vessel designed specifically to patrol breach points. Do you regret learning the truth? He asked. Zriel considered the question. No, but I understand now why humans kept it secret. In the observation lounge, diplomats and officers gathered for a farewell dinner. Humans and aliens mingled, united by common purpose. Occasionally, someone would raise a glass toward the edge of human space, a silent toast to the ships patrolling the darkness. We have a saying on Earth, William told her. We stand at the edge so others don't have to look into the abyss. As Zriel prepared to depart the next morning, she looked out at the stars one last time. The galaxy seemed different now, not just vast and beautiful, but fragile, protected by an unlikely guardian species that had accepted a terrible burden, without complaint. The blank zone on the chart had a purpose after all, and now everyone knew better than to ask why.